Hey, happy Tuesday. Oh gosh, I'm losing my voice, besties and bosses. I'm just changing the light here. I think we lost a little bit of our light. Oh, that's super dark. There we go. Happy Tuesday, y'all. Don't mind me as I'm messing with things. How's everyone doing? How's everyone's week off to a start? How's it going off to a start? Happy Tuesday. I'm excited for our conversation today. We have a lot to dive into. I know the topic sounds very fun, which it is, but there's actually quite a lot of meat we're going to dive into today for your sales and marketing. Before we do, a couple fun announcements to remind y'all of. So obviously this is our new live stream time at 4 p.m. So getting used to that myself. And let me not have the light thing going on here. I'm excited for this. We'll see how this goes moving forward, but say hi. Let me know if you're on live, if you're on the replay. We usually give something away to thank you for being here, for being a part of the group, for being a part of the conversation. So today we are giving away a copy of my self-study course, Sell Out Without Feeling Like a Sellout. It's a 6-week sales course. It's pretty epic in my opinion. It covers the clarity, mindset, strategy, and action for the art and strategy of mastering sales without the ick. So we're giving away one of those today. All you have to do is say hi, leave a comment, whether you're watching now or on the replay, and we will select winners we've been picking them on Thursday, and we'll DM you if you have one and send that to you. If you already have it, if you don't want it, you can pass it on to someone else. So all you have to do is say hi or leave a comment. And do I have any other announcements? Oh, I do have one other announcement. Thank you to my team, I don't know if they're watching this or not, we are officially opening up 1 to 2 more spots in June. I closed my capacity. We've been fully booked for years, and usually we just have spots open up as clients are finishing out. And I closed my capacity last year after getting a little overbooked, but we are now in a place where we're able to open up some more capacity. So if you've been thinking about working with me, if that's something you've been curious about, if you've been wondering what it would be like to work together, we will have 1 to 2 spots opening up in June, I have to make sure it is depending on some renewals as well. So that isn't always the case. Sometimes it's just sort of like as they pop up. These will likely be the last spots I will open up for the rest of the year. Likely ever in my roster outside of spots opening up when clients finish up. So it's a great opportunity. If that's something you've been thinking about, I will drop a discovery call link. They're very low pressure, but I would love to connect with you. Okay, and if you're hopping on now, a reminder to leave a comment, say hi, let me know you're here, and you'll be entered to win a copy of Sell Out Without Feeling Like a Sellout. So let's dive into today's topic. So again, this sounds like a super fun one. We're talking about what waiting tables taught me about sales and about making wild amounts of money. And I know that almost seems like, what does this have to do with business? But I've been thinking about this. I've had this topic on kind of the back burner for a really long time. And I really wanted to bring it here because when I think about the business I have now, when I think about what has gone into helping me book my first handful of clients and now having a business that has continued to add over 100K revenue every year from one-on-one alone, where we're at multi-6 figures. We were just under 400K last year. We're continuing to scale. I think back to, really waiting tables, and my 10 years acting really paved the way for so much of what I've learned in marketing and sales that I applied to business and what I support my clients with. Obviously, there have been other things in there, and waiting tables in particular, I really think there's been a lot there in terms of marketing and sales. It's been so supportive. Laura says, oh, hi, Laura. Nice to have you here. Nice to see you. So I want to dive into that today because you may or may not know this. I spent 10 years acting, and when I acted, I always had a waiting tables job, pay the bills job. I worked at a bar for 10 years. And for many reasons, one of those being I never wanted to put pressure on my art, on my craft, and never wanted to put pressure on auditions where I felt like I had to book it to make money, because we all know that desperate energy does not do a whole lot of good for us in business, and the same as in acting. And it's really interesting when I waited tables, I actually really liked it. Anybody else? I would love to know now and on the replay who has waited tables in their past, who liked it, who didn't like it. I actually really loved it. I think I got burnt out towards the end. I really loved it a lot. I love service. That is like a big part of, I think, my value system. So I really loved getting to be in that role, waiting tables, and just kind of like at the end of the day, having all that cash. I was also really good at it and made excellent money. I put in the email we sent out, and this is not to pat myself on the back, I think this is to really help us because I've looked at this and wondered why this is the case. And I think this is so much of what is applicable to what works in our online space for marketing and sales. I would routinely double, triple, quadruple outsell anyone else in the bar I was at, to the degree that sometimes they would stop putting other people on the floor when I was working because I could sell so much on my own. They would often have contests. I don't know if anybody ever waited tables where they'd like have contests to sell something. And I would routinely win those, but like exponentially, like by a landslide. And I also was really great at making tips. I would get great tips, but I was like, this was just like became a new normal for me where people would just hand me extra money. I think I put in the email I sent out, I once had someone, after giving me their like 20, 30% tip on their table, hand me literally an extra, it was either $1,100 or $1,500 cash as just an extra tip, nothing shady. And this would happen regularly. I would often have someone give me an extra $100 or extra $300. And peeling back the layers, like now as I look through this through the lens, as I'm supporting clients with marketing and sales, as I'm using this in my own business, I see there's so much that went into selling at those bars and being able to sell exponentially. And I worked in some high-end bars when I first moved to New York City, so it would be like high ticket sales and with bottle service. There were just so many lessons there that I think are really applicable to you and I in business in the online space. So that's what we're going to unpack today. I wanted to preface that a little bit because otherwise, I think it just feels a little bit like, I don't know, what the heck does waiting tables have to do with our business? But I think there's quite a lot there. And I think it's a really helpful lens to look at because all of us might have different businesses. We might have different strategies. We might have different platforms we're selling on. Reels might change tomorrow. We may or may not be on Pinterest, but most of us have dined out at least once in our life and know the experience of what it's like to be served in the service industry. And many of us have worked a service industry job. And so I think that's where we can have some parallels and see, wait, if we can take those lessons, we can apply them to our business and they can be really, really serving. Now, I was making notes for myself and I legit had over 10 lessons from waiting tables. So this might have to be a two-parter. Y'all will have to let me know if you find this helpful as a lens to look through. We're gonna see how far we get through these today, but I'm not gonna keep you here for 3 hours. The first lesson that I wanted to dive into is actually a mindset component, and then the rest are more on the strategy side of things. But this is something that I actually can remember the day in my mind when I shifted from waiting tables at the first bar I worked at and sort of kind of making money to the day where I started where I was like, how did I just make this money serving cocktails? And I remember having this moment of looking at some of the other servers who are making great money and wondering wait, why is that the case? Why am I not making as much money? And I realized part of it was I just had a story that it had to be hard. And I remember going home, I was like, I am just deciding tomorrow when I go to my shift, at that point, I wanted to make $300. I was like, I'm making $300. And I remember I just literally sat there and really thought about, doesn't matter how many tables I have, it doesn't matter how many people I serve, I am just deciding that is what's happening and making that happen. And this sounds so overly simple and so obvious, but up until then, my mindset and energy really hadn't been available for that and really thought it had to be hard and really thought there was something different between me and everyone else. And I say this because I see this happen in our space and I see this with clients all the time where it's sort of this thing of I must be missing something. There must be something I'm not good enough at. I have to wait until X, Y, and Z, until I have all of these things before I'm allowed to decide that I'm going to make a certain amount of money. And the moment people stop thinking they're missing something and start to see they have everything they need and decide what they're available for and start showing up from this place of expectation, not expectation where it's I need to have this or I'm going to be disappointed and I'm going to create a story that I'm a failure, but really this place of I am showing up knowing this is mine and I'm available for this. It's wild how things shift. And I remember literally that next day, what blew my mind was I showed up with that decision and belief and I made my first $300 waiting tables ever. And it was one of those moments of just wait, I decided something, I got behind it, I got into belief, I showed up and put that in action and that just happened. And it was actually, I think, really close to the dollar, which I think just made my mind a little bit more blown. And that became my mindset all the time when I waited tables. And the other parallel here that feels so important to share is I worked at a bar in Los Angeles on Sunset Strip, and it was we had a lot of regulars, and sometimes you'd have your busy nights, but I also worked some midweek shifts where don't know, it was like a Tuesday and it wasn't necessarily the most busy night. And I remember I really started to cultivate the belief of it didn't matter if it was a busy night or slow night. It really didn't matter at all. I would decide what I was available for. And I really decided that money was coming in one way or the other. I was sort of available for whether I had 3 customers come in that night and they were just going to give me a really big tip, or we were going to have, I don't know, 50 people come in or 100 people come in, or I have no idea how many people used to come in, but I was just sort of available for it to be either way. And what I found to be true is the more I believed that, it was really interesting how I rarely made less than what I was available for. And I really started to open myself up to be available for, I mean, we would have nights where in LA, no one goes out when it's raining. It would be slow and dreary and raining. And I would maybe have 3 tables, but someone would leave me $100 tip. Someone would decide to order a really expensive bottle of something. Like, it was really fascinating how these, maybe it would be more than 3 tables, but how this would work out. So I'm reflecting that here before we dive into the strategy part, because that was one of the first mindset energy lessons I learned waiting tables. And I saw this when I was auditioning as well. And is really starting to see that connection between deciding what I was available for and deciding that it didn't have to, what I was seeing in terms of circumstances or how many numbers or how many people or what seemed possible really didn't have to be my reality, and that income could come in all sorts of different ways, and really to remain available for that even when the circumstances didn't seem like that was possible. In fact, I had to be even kind of more available for that when the circumstances didn't seem like they were possible. And I mean, it just like is so helpful for me to connect to that, because that's what then served me in business to see the same thing, right? Where it's like, I say this to clients all the time, it doesn't matter if you have a Facebook group of, I don't know, what are we at, 15,000, 16,000, or 20, or if you know, whatever, like that's the equivalent of like a rainy bar, right? Or like a slower night at a bar. Like, it's not about those numbers. It's so much more about what is that belief set? What are you deciding? What are you available for? What are you showing up for? What are you open to receive? And seeing that it can come through in different ways. And the more we can cultivate that on the front end, it really does line up to what we're allowed to have, or what we allow ourselves to have on the other side, to the degree that I really think those wild amounts of money, like having someone hand you $1,100, I don't want to say $1,000, $1,100, I think as waiting tables as a tip. And I should connect the dots here. This was at a bar I worked at in New York City when I first moved here, and this was a slow night. Literally, it was at a new bar that was kind of going out of business. No one had come in the whole day, and then a corporate party came in. This was my only table for the entire night. And so if I had gone in with the belief of like, this sucks, I'm not going to make any money, I honestly probably would have been asked to get sent home early and just have the bartender stay. But I was like, no, I'm making my money tonight. The table walked in. It was probably like a $500 tip on the table because of what I sold, plus that $1,100. I'm reflecting that here because all signs pointed to going home with like $3 or no money. And that was probably, what is that? I had to tip people out, but call that $1,700 before the end of the night. And so I want to reflect this here because the same is true for everyone here in the online space and in your business. And the more we can cultivate that belief and show up and be available for that, while still, remaining detached, that is where the wild shifts and wild results that don't make sense happen. It's really hard to have wild results that don't make sense happen in your business if you're not first available for them. Hey, Brittany, nice to see you. Nice to see you on here. Let me know if that part is making sense. I know that can get a little on the woo side of things, but I really think this is also very practically based on how our brain is wired. Whatever we believe subconsciously, whatever we are available for, that is what we show up for. The bar example, I think, is so helpful because part of the difference there was I simply didn't go home that night. When otherwise, if I had thought, well, no one's come in all night, it's like a slow night, it's a Tuesday, I'm not gonna make any money, or I'm gonna make 20 bucks, what's the freaking point? If I had that mindset and that narrative and that story, I would have gone home, that would have been true for me, and I would have had the evidence to support my story that was true, and that is how I would have kept showing up throughout the time I waited tables, as opposed to, I am decided I'm making this money, I am available for this, I know this can happen despite what this looks like in so many different ways. I'm gonna be here to work that when that happens, right? Like that had me then show up and make different decisions to have different results. And so the same thing is true with everyone here's business and marketing and sales strategy. yes, we could call there's like some universal magic in that if that's what you believe in, but I think there's such a practical element of it literally changes what you show up for and even the opportunities you notice, because that also meant I had a different energy when serving that table, right? I showed up and I served that table as opposed to just being like, like I'm here, I have to be here, like whatever, I'm not gonna make any money. So I just want to reflect that part before we dive into the strategy piece, because that, quite honestly, alone probably is what changed so much of the game for me, waiting tables, and what allowed me to make wild money there. And that is, quite honestly, I think what supported me in my business and helped me to make money that I don't think is statistically normal for a one-on-one business coach, and has my clients make money that is not statistically normal or doesn't match up with the circumstances for their audience size or how long they've been in business. This is the piece I see really change the game. Laura says, I needed this reminder today. Thank you. Oh, I'm so glad this is what you needed to hear. And I also, I'm going to cheers you because does anybody else do this? I have 3 liquids lined up here. I have my kombucha, I have my water, and I have my empty coffee mug. So I guess 2 liquids, but I'm gonna cheers you to that. So I'm jonesing for my kombucha. So again, if nothing else, I would say that's the biggest lesson I learned. Waiting tables that supported me to make wild money. It's the same thing that supported me acting, quite honestly. And it's just the difference maker. I was chatting with some mastermind sisters about this recently, and we were talking about just the difference between really epic, wild income months that at one point probably seemed not possible. And so much of the difference really isn't the practical strategy at a certain point. It is the mindset, the energy, what you're available for. And I know that's so annoying to hear. And this is not to discount strategy, because we're gonna talk a whole lot of strategy if I don't yammer on about this too much. But it is to say all the strategy pieces almost don't matter if we don't have this part. Kind of going back to that example I just shared, if I had the mindset of, this is stupid, I'm not gonna make any money, no one has come in all night, what's the point in bother? I could have followed the practical strategy of waiting tables when that corporate event came in, and I probably would have made a little bit of money, but it definitely wouldn't have been walking away with $1,700. And so I want us to see how like that piece is the rocket fuel that makes any strategy blow up for you and create those wild results. Hey Malika, hey. And Laura says, haha, yes, minimum 2 glasses next to me at all times. It's gotta be like an entrepreneur thing. It's so funny. I need to be well lubricated apparently. I also just I love liquids, which sounds so funny. Okay, so that is kind of that is on the mindset side. Now let's talk some of the practical strategy waiting tables taught me about making wild amounts of money. Now again, I got 9 more here. We're not going to go through all of them today, but if you're liking this, let me know and we'll do a encore, a part 2 in a couple of weeks. But I want to talk some of the practical strategy because I think this will be helpful to see some things in business through in the online space. So the next lesson I have here is what I noticed. And I'm going to use the example of, we would have contests at one of the restaurants or bars I worked at to sell these drinks. Were called mega margaritas. The first bar I ever worked at was not classy at all. It was like this, when you move to LA and you're an actress and you need to get a pay the bills job, what you suddenly realize is it does not matter that you have a college degree. It does not matter, insert all the things. Everybody in the world wants a serving job and they're like weirdly covetous. So the first serving job I was available to get was this, like, we literally called it the Shack of Dreams. It was this like Shack of Broken Dreams, I think is what we called it. It's horrible. But it was this like little tiny cantina place that had a 4-hour happy hour of margaritas. So that paints a picture. So many stories, so many funny stories from that time. But we would have these contests to sell these drinks called a mega margarita, which sounds horrible to me. But there were these like massive, big margaritas, and the bar wanted to sell a lot of them for revenue reasons. And so they would incentivize us with like bonuses for whoever sold the most. And I was like, wait, you're going to incentivize me to sell more of these? Let me figure out how to sell more of them. And so I always won. And I didn't just always win. I would win where someone else would be like, I can't sell any of these. I can sell like 2. I would sell 38 to their 2. So I really had this on lockdown in terms of, I am going to sell these and I'm going to win this and I'm going to win by a landslide. And when I look back at that, one of the things I found really worked well strategically is the same thing that works really well strategically for us as business owners, is I got really clear on each table, getting clear on what it is they specifically wanted and positioning that mega margarita to speak to their needs, their wants and desires, and to make sure it was specific to each table. So what I mean by this is mega margarita is like who else is with me? I don't know, maybe that sounds really good to you. To me, that doesn't sound good. So the name is cracking me up. But what I mean by this is I found for like someone else, they would just kind of every table that sat down, they would just offer the mega margarita and kind of talk about what's in it. And I don't know, that'll sell you a couple. But I realized like it's this big old drink that was it was like triple the price of anything else on the menu. Like I had to help people understand why they would want to spend triple the price of anything on the menu, and that's not what they came into the restaurant thinking they wanted. And so I would pay attention and just listen for what is this table like, basically how can I please this table, what are they here for? So if it was someone who was there for happy hour and wanted to save money and wanted to drink as much as possible, spending as little as possible, which is just so funny to talk about in a live stream because that sounds awful, but hang with me, then I would help them understand specifically how that drink solved that problem for them, how it was actually a better deal because there was more booze in this big glass. But if it was someone else coming in who could care less about that, and they were coming in because they were celebrating a birthday, the problem they needed to solve was how can we have a really great birthday party and how can we really help our friend feel special? I would sell the same drink specific to them and talk about how we could put some straws and umbrellas in it and how this was like it's like better than cake and it was like a special treat and dessert, like you could take fun pictures, like what a fun like Instagram moment. So this seems like a very silly example, but what I want to demonstrate here is yes, this was like a silly drink and it was a silly competition, but the strategy there is the same strategy that works for us in the online space, which is starting to get really clear and specific around what is it that my person wants, what is the benefit that's going to speak to them that they're willing to spend money on, and how can I start to see that it's not going to be the same for everyone, and the more I can specifically sell to what someone really wants, and sell the same thing in different ways specifically to what someone wants, the more I'm going to be able to sell. Now, caveat here, you have to come from a place of integrity, right? If someone came in, again, this seems so awful to talk about drinking this way, but if someone came in wasted, I'm not gonna sell them this big old drink, right? That would not be a fit. That would be out of integrity. That would be manipulative and taking advantage of someone. But from a place of integrity, getting really clear on what can I understand about the person in front of me? What do they need? Why is this offer a specific fit for them and solution for them, and selling that specifically was the difference between maybe selling 2 of those for someone else who was working that day to me selling 38 of those. And what I found is the more you got good at getting specific with this, the more they started to sell themselves, because once someone was sold on it, it was actually a yummy tasting thing and they were really fun. People would want more than one. And the table next door or sitting next door would see that and see that social proof and evidence, they'd want one as well. And so then it started to get a lot easier. And so I'm reflecting this here because I think one of the biggest lessons we can play with, and one of the things I support clients with, is starting to notice how it's just so easy to start to get really generic and to think if we're just saying, I've got this mega margarita, who wants it? It's great. It's a big glass, it's a margarita with a lot of straws, you should want to buy this. We just get into this pattern of thinking that's selling and sales and that should be enough, except for we're in a busy, crowded, loud online space where there are a lot of people selling mega margaritas or selling something very similar. And we have to start to think more about how is this specifically, whether it's for one person or a group of people, how can I really get clear? We talked about this in last week's live when we were talking about content, but I want you to think about this now from a sales perspective. When you're having your sales conversations, when you're writing your sales email, how can I really start to get specific and really actually sell my offer and sell it as the best solution to what my people want? Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. For you. I want to go through a couple more of these. So we talked last week, it was last week when we did the content, we talked about specifics a bit. So I think that picks up from there pretty well. We were just talking about this, but just to kind of piggyback on what I was just saying, the other piece with this that I think is really relevant for you and I in the online space is starting to understand human psychology and buyer psychology. And again, this isn't coming from a manipulative place. I think this is understanding. If someone's coming into the bar, they're there for a reason. Like, it's okay to sell to them. Just like if someone's coming into your space, it's okay to sell to them. We have to assume that that's probably something they're interested in. Very big, and I always coach my clients around not selling to someone who hasn't raised their hand, right? I'm not going to go out into the street around the corner from the bar and sell something from the bar to someone on the street. But if someone's walked in, they're raising their hand to be sold to. So I want to make sure we're always coming from a place of integrity. But what I think is really helpful to remember, and one of the lessons I saw there, is social proof is a very real thing that works very well. And us humans have so much FOMO, it is wild. And if we can understand this, again, not from a manipulative place, but from a place of integrity and only selling things that make sense to someone, we can see what I was just saying is things start to sell themselves when you leverage social proof and FOMO. So when I would sell one of these mega margaritas, I would make a big deal out of it. I would put a bunch of straws in it. I would celebrate the table that was buying this big old expensive drink. And that was social proof that someone else was saying, this is a good thing for me to spend my money on. And then when that table is cheering and having a lot of fun, that is social proof that this is a great thing to spend your money on. And when you see that drink coming out and it's got all the fun stuff coming out of it, that creates an element of FOMO and social proof. And so by simply doing that and making an effort to show this is a great thing to spend your money on, if you're coming into this restaurant and you want to buy a drink, or bar and you want to buy a drink, that would encourage my other tables to want to buy one of their own, because that's kind of how we are as humans, right? And so again, not from a manipulative place, but a way that you can really serve your business is starting to see how can you leverage that social proof and that natural element of FOMO in a way that really serves and supports your clients and helps them to make a buying decision. When I worked that same restaurant in Manhattan, when I worked in meat packing, we would also do bottle service. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that. That was not my favorite job, but this is also like side tangent here. I'm also very proud of Past Kim for all of that, because that's also how I support him. One of the ways I supported myself when I started my business. But when you sell bottle service, when someone would buy an expensive bottle of, say, vodka, and it was $500, we would attach a sparkler to it. I don't know if does anyone know what I'm talking about? So, and we would make a really big deal and parade out this big bottle with all the glasses and this sparkler, and serve the whole table. The same place we would sometimes do, we would sell like 10 bottles of champagne at a time on like this, I don't know, long tray, and we would put sparklers all around it. The reason for that, and the reason I'm sharing this with you, is not to like have us all like, I don't know, think about spring break or something. But the reason for that is that was social proof, and that was creating FOMO. And we knew if we made a big deal about someone spending $500 and serving them and having fun and having that sparkler, the table next to them is looking over thinking, well, that looks fun. Well, that's cool. How do we get a sparkler? And we're not just going to give out a sparkler, right? You have to invest in, you have to like, that comes with the service, with the bottle service. And that was a form of social proof and a form of creating FOMO. And that would create more sales around the whole bar. I mean, that was not, like, I don't think any of us put out sparklers because that was like a fun thing to do. It was a strategic play. And sharing that here again doesn't have to be manipulative. It doesn't have to be gross, but I think starting to see this is human psychology. This is how we think. This is how we buy. This is why we purchase things. And if we can think through that lens, we can apply that to the online space and think, well, how can I leverage the power of social proof? And seeing social proof is not only about like you needing to prove you're good enough, because I think the mindset hang up I find so many of my clients get around is feeling like that has to be a way to like prove their worthiness. And what I want to invite you to like think about is you are worthy. Like that's not a question mark if someone's coming into your metaphorical bar, but the social proof helps someone see that it's safe and helps someone see, oh, there's other people who have invested here. And so maybe this result is possible for me, or this is safe for me, or this is something I can have too. It can give permission to people, right? Especially when we're making a big investment. If you're going out to dinner, right? If you see someone else spending money on something nice, it gives you permission to treat yourself in the same way. And it creates a little bit of that FOMO as well. So hopefully that one makes sense. Hopefully you're enjoying my bar stories. Okay, so how are we doing? We're doing good on time. Let's talk about the next lesson. Let me know if you have questions, reflections, thoughts, and don't forget, if you say hi, you're entered to win a copy of Sell Out Without Feeling Like a Sellout. Okay, so the next lesson from waiting tables, from tending the bar, is taking the mindset and approach of what would help someone enjoy this more. So I said at the beginning of this live stream, I think one of my top values is service. I'm service driven. I honestly love service. I think anyone else who loves service will have to tell me this. I feel like it's one of those things where if you love to give gifts, part of it is because it also makes you feel really good. I get such pleasure and joy, like sincerely, out of serving people. It actually lights me up, and like nothing makes me happier than seeing other people happy, and probably why I love coaching so much, or one of the reasons I love coaching so much. And so I genuinely, I hit a point where I was on waiting tables, but I did it for 10 years and I genuinely enjoyed when I was there. But one of the things that was important to me is I want people to enjoy being here. While they're hanging out here, I want them to enjoy this is like, it's not my house, but it feels like my house while I'm working, and I want to serve people really well. And I want them to feel like that was the best place I could spend my time and energy. And I was always thinking through what would help them enjoy this more, what would add to this experience. And yes, this is linked to sales, and this would help me sell more, and I'll connect the dots there. But it really was coming from that genuine place. And I say that because I think the more we can tap into the genuine, authentic, service-based reason for doing something, the easier I think it is to sell, because I think people can pick up on the difference. And I don't know if this strategy would have worked as well if I was like, well, let me just try to figure out how to sell more and make more money. It really wasn't coming from that angle. But with what would help someone enjoy this more, what I would then think through is my job is to help think through options for someone and to make specific offers that would help someone enjoy something more. Like my job is almost to be like I'm taking a diagnosis, a feel for what's happening, and to think, I know the menu better. I know the restaurant better. Like that's my job. I literally work here. So how can I make suggestions? And so, and I'm sure you've experienced this. If you've ever been a guest at a restaurant, I would think if someone just had ordered a certain kind of food, what side would make them enjoy that more? What glass of wine would help them enjoy that meal more? What dessert would help them enjoy that meal more? If they were, I don't know, wanting water, would sparkling water be more enjoyable? I was always thinking, what would help them enjoy this more, but linking that to something I could offer and sell the person in front of me. And this would, over the course of an evening, every table would order exponentially more because I'm offering more, which would increase sales, which would increase tips for me and my sales overall, which meant I got better shifts and all of that sort of thing. So that would also support me making more money. And what I've now connected the dots to, that I don't think I necessarily was like analyzing this at the time, but what I've realized is as humans, we're so used to just kind of always ordering the same thing, and we don't always know what we want. And I think on the service provider side, we think people know what they want, and if they want something, they will ask for it. But on the customer side, we get stuck in patterns. We tend to order the same thing. We get into ruts. We often don't know what we want, and half the time we're kind of afraid to ask for it, or we don't give ourselves permission for it. And so what I've connected the dots to and realized now is oftentimes simply the act of asking someone allows them to have permission to say yes to the things they want. Now, obviously they don't want it, they can say no. We're always coming from the mindset of we're empowering people to be healthy adults to make decisions around what they want or don't want. But so often someone isn't even aware of the option, thinking of the option for the reasons we just talked about, or hasn't given themselves permission. And it is amazing to me how simply saying, you know what would be really great with that is this beautiful glass of red wine, or whatever made sense at the time, would you like to have that as well? Or whatever, I don't know, this was 10 years ago, y'all. But however I might have said that, how someone would be like, oh my gosh, yeah, that would be delicious. And say yes to that, and then maybe order 2 glasses or order a bottle. Right? And that simple act of diagnosing what would help someone to have a better experience or to feel better, to enjoy this more, and getting clear and making the offer, making the ask, that was the simple strategy that would make such a difference. And the beautiful thing is, on the receiving end, people would be so grateful. They'd be like, oh, that tasted so good, or I would have never known to try that, or that just made my dinner taste so much better. People would leave having a better experience. And I offer this here because I hear from clients all the time, think there can be such a resistance to making offers, such a resistance to making an ask, such a resistance to making a specific suggestion here and connecting the dots for someone, saying like, hey, I know you've really enjoyed this thing. You know what else would be really enjoyable? You know what else I think would be really great is this other thing I offer. Because people are worried about being pushy or annoying, or they think that, well, if they wanted that, they would have just asked for it, or they would know to ask for that. But if we use this restaurant example, so often people aren't thinking that way. They don't know the menu that well. They don't know, they're stuck in their rut and thinking, I don't know, I always order these same 3 things off the menu. Whatever that thing is, I think we get to see our job is to think through the lens of literally how you would think if you were waiting tables, and think, how can I help someone find that pairing that is just going to help elevate their experience and have them have a more enjoyable time. And see, when you think through that lens, that serves the person in front of you. And again, they'll say no if they don't want it. If they don't want to drink, if they don't drink, they'll say no. If they do, they'll say yes and be so grateful, and they'll feel so much more served, and you get to benefit as well. It's such a symbiotic relationship there. So again, I would say it's like the bigger picture lesson there is remembering people. I think sometimes on the sales service provider side, we unintentionally ask a lot of our people. We ask them to know what it is they want, to be able to ask for it, to be able to diagnose the thing they need, to know our offers, to know our menu, to be able to connect the dots to what we do. I think we put a lot of responsibility on our audience unintentionally, or on our potential clients unintentionally. And what I want to invite you to think about here is, how can you really start to take some of that responsibility back and really connect dots for people, really help them see what those options are, really help them see, hey, you just bought this would be a good match. Here's what I think would benefit you. Here's what I think would serve you most, and ask for the sale more often. Again, this was not like a once in a while thing this would happen. I rarely think people ever sold more than me anywhere I worked in 10 years, maybe like a handful of times. But I think part of the reason for that is exactly what we're talking about. I simply connected the dots for people and was willing to ask more, and do so from a place of what's going to actually help someone enjoy this. And that just adds up and compounds over time. The same is true for you and your business. And I think we get so wrapped around like, there's this complicated strategy someone taught me, and I need to like create this 14 email funnel. And not that there's anything wrong with funnels. We have lots of email funnels, but we can get our brains wrapped around like all the complicated things, and like thinking sales strategy has to be like super, super hard. And I think sometimes we forget, not that those strategies can't work, but sometimes we're missing the simple core element of the art of simply asking, of presenting an offer and asking. So that's that next lesson there, and just really coming from that mindset of how can I help someone enjoy this more, and connecting the dots to that next step for them and making the ask. And I made myself my notes here. I think I said this already though, but offering the side salad, offering the dessert, offering the glass of wine. What is that in your business? And just seeing if every time you're interacting with someone, you're connecting the dots, you're making those offers. If even 25% of people said yes, that would be a 25 increase in your sales and in your revenue. Maybe not overall revenue, but in your sales. Okay. I think I did a podcast episode on this when we were talking about the fancy water we sold at the place I worked at in New York City, and I'll have to link to the podcast because that's a whole nother lesson in that. But one of the things there, we without going into that whole podcast episode and lesson, this was an expensive bottle of water that added about $10 to the bill if people only bought one, and usually people would buy multiple if they were there all night having drinks. And that was one of those things where like simply offering this really beautiful elegant, like a special filtration system water to a table, that would help them enjoy their experience more and help them be hydrated and all of the things. And over the course of the night, that could easily add 10, 20, 30, 100, depending on how many bottles of water, dollars to a bill and increase your tips. Okay, so with this, another sales lesson. Okay, I think we have time for like one or two more, and then you let me know if you want more of these. We'll do a part 2. So one of kind of like the golden rules we had waiting tables that I really took to heart and that I really take to heart in my business is to practice anticipating needs. So this is similar to what we were just talking about, but it's slightly different. I want to explain the difference because I think this is applicable overall to making wild money and those big sales. It's also, I find, what is such a big part of creating consistent, reliable, kind of that sustainable repeat income in your business and having repeat clients. And it gets so dry, y'all. I need a little more kombucha. So with anticipating a client's needs, now I want to be really mindful of how I describe this because if you're a client of mine, I also talk about not being a mind reader and we want to assume, we don't know what people want. So anticipating someone's needs is not trying to be a mind reader. It's not trying to decide for someone. It's not trying to disempower them. It is thinking about how can I'll use the waiting tables example, but how can I start to get to know what someone might need and offer something before they're aware they need this thing? How can I offer this before they have a chance to ask? So let me give an example here. One of my kind of personal challenges rules was no matter how busy a restaurant got, I never wanted someone to have an empty drink unless it was by choice. Meaning, if you were having a cocktail and it got to the halfway point, I wanted to anticipate your need, meaning you're halfway through that drink. It takes my bartender some time to make a drink, all that thing for us to bring it back, especially during a busy shift. I want to offer you your next drink when you're halfway through. I want to anticipate your need that you might want another drink. And I want to ask that. I want to anticipate that. I want to ask before you even have to think about it. So you feel so served. So you feel so taken care of. So you feel so supported. And if you do want that other drink, you can let me know. I can put that in. There's no rush. The bartender can make that and I can deliver it to you usually right around when you're finishing that other drink of yours, and it is just like this seamless experience for you. That's anticipating a guest need or a client need. Now, this is really important, and there's a couple reasons for that. One, it feels great. Who doesn't love when you don't have to flag down your server because you've been sitting with an empty drink or an empty plate? I don't know about you, ex-server. I'm probably the most annoying person to serve. I leave excellent tips, but I also wait tables for 10 years, and I'm always come on, teasing a little bit. But who hasn't had that experience where, you're somewhere, you're having a nice meal, and you're things aren't matching up. I'm having to wait for water. I'm having to wait for a drink, and you're sitting around waiting for something. That doesn't make you feel super served and have the best experience, which absolutely affects your overall impression, if you're going to stick around and spend more money, what kind of tip you're going to leave. And for you and I, in our space, what I started to really connect the dots to and realize is when we anticipate a client's need and we can sell from that space, this is also where you start to retain clients and keep repeat customers. So I'm going to use the restaurant as an example, and then I'll explain how this plays out in your business. With the restaurant, for an example, if I wasn't anticipating clients' needs or customers' needs, and I was just waiting until they wanted something and waiting for them to tell me, here's what usually happens when this was a busy West Hollywood, Los Angeles. I worked at a place where it's this was when people were out for the night, right? They're going out from spot to spot. If they stop at the kind of place I worked, the restaurant in Los Angeles I worked at, I feel like it was the local, it wasn't Cheers, but it was Cheers, right? And so a lot of times people will go there to get a drink before kind of going to whatever, fancy schmancy club they were going to go to. Now, if you come in and that's kind of your game plan and you have a drink and you're well, maybe I'll have another one, maybe not, but someone doesn't anticipate your needs and it gets empty and it's taking a while and you've got other places you want to go, by the time I come around when your drink is empty and I ask you if you want a drink, you've already texted your friend at the next location to say we're closing out the bill, we're on the way, right? You've already finished mentally with where you're at, you're done, and you're usually thinking about your next step ahead, right? Like it's already too late. Whereas if I anticipate your needs when you've had that like halfway through the drink, you're still enjoying the present moment. You're still in the mode here. You likely haven't gotten to the place where you're thinking about your next step. If I've anticipated that need really well and I help you to have a great time and you decide to order another drink, what happens? You're no longer now making new plans. You're planning on sticking around and staying put. And this is how I could fill an empty bar any night of the week and keep people staying and hanging out and not going to another location simply because we were anticipating needs, which kept people in the moment and also had them feeling, well served and like it was worth kind of staying in the moment. Now, the same is true for your business. I know this sounds like everyone's going to want a cocktail after this, but I want to connect this to your business. With your business, if you have clients and you're anticipating their needs and you're starting to reach out ahead of time about whether it's renewing a contract or thinking about that other offer they might want or that other service they want, while they're still, before they know and they're super aware if that's the need and they have to think about it, you get to catch them in the present moment where they're enjoying being served by you, where they're like at your metaphorical bar and they want to stick around. And you also, you get to solve their problems and help them feel super well taken care of and served. If you wait until they have that empty glass, that metaphorical empty glass, and it's kind of like the end of the contract, usually what's happened is they've already started thinking about the next bar they're going to go to, the next service provider they're going to go to, right? If I don't know there's another drink on the way from me, or I don't know there's another service on the way from me, another possibility, and my needs haven't been anticipated, likely if I have needs, unless I'm super proactive and I'm going to ask you, especially if it's something different, I'm likely already thinking about where's the next place I'm going to go. I'm doing my research. I might have already signed a contract somewhere else. So I bring this here because one of the things I always chat with clients about is not just booking in clients, but how do we, if it makes sense with your business model, how are we encouraging retention? How are we encouraging clients to stick around, to stay in your metaphorical bar, to have another drink? Because the longer you retain clients, right, the more ease you have in your business, the more revenue you generate without having to create more traffic. I think it's also just more enjoyable, and I think it's more beneficial for everyone, right? Someone stays in my bar longer, I get to know them, I get to know what they want, I get to know their drink order, right? I got so good, y'all. I had literally regulars in my phone. They would text me on the way to the bar and tell me to hold them a spot and have their drink ready. And I got to know my regulars so much. They'd come in and I knew exactly what they wanted and I could have it ready for them, right? There is a benefit on the client side. There's a benefit on my side. How fun is that when I know someone that well? How much ease is that when I know it's a slow night and I can text a couple people and say, I'm working, come on in. I've got your order ready. So when the longer you can retain clients, again, if it makes sense for your service, the more ease there is in creating revenue, the more of that wild money you can make, right? Because you can create abundance when maybe it seems like it's a scarce time in the economy or in business, or it's a slow night at your metaphorical bar. You can create better service, which is so beneficial for your clients. And then if you're able to create renewing clients or repeat revenue, that's also really serving. Again, if it depends on everyone's business model here, but for your overall long-term revenue you're making. Nala says hi, y'all. It is her dinner time, but we'll see if she can be quiet here. So that is something I want to invite you to play with and to think about, because I think that is one of those things. It seems like such a small, minute thing, but I think it has so many layers of benefits. And I just see how anticipating a guest needs, anticipating clients' needs, again, which is different than mind reading, right? We're not talking about mind reading here. We're not trying to talk about, that is not what we're doing at all. But anticipating the client's needs and making those offers before someone maybe is even aware that that's something they need to think about can be really serving in your business. What do you think, Nala? Do you agree with that? Nala says, I did not anticipate her needs and I should be feeding her early, but she's just gonna have to wait. For those of you who don't know, Nala is my Bengal cat who's now sitting on my lap, whose tail we got here. Okay, so let me, Laura says, haha, Nala says, anticipate my food needs. She says, anticipate my food needs. She says, I anticipate my own needs because it's not actually time for her to eat for a few minutes, but she's being very good. I've done this is a side tangent, but I've done an Instagram, I do the bite-sized biz lessons, and we've done one before about how Nala is so good at sales in every way, and she sells me and my husband all the time on feeding her when we're not supposed to. She has us so trained. She's a very good sales cat. So anyone who has cats, you could probably get some sales lessons from your cats. Okay, let's see. I'm trying to see if we can. I'm gonna do one more lesson here from just trying to pick which one I want to do so that it's a little bit. I'm gonna do one more and then y'all let me know. I feel like we covered quite a lot, so I also don't want to just like inundate you, but I am hoping these are beneficial and helpful for you all, and just helpful reminders and frames to think about how to apply this to your business, and also that yes, there's strategy and there's things we have to think about in business, but I'm hoping that you're seeing this and seeing it also doesn't have to be as complicated as it needs to be. I think all of us, I think there's an art to service and to waiting tables. Man, there are people in New York City who are just excellent at that skill and that craft. And I think we can all agree, like, it's not the most complicated thing in the world. And that's what I'm hoping you'll take away from today's live stream. But the last lesson that I will share from waiting tables, from working at the bar, and making wild amounts of money. We did do a podcast episode on this, so I don't know which episode it was in the last few weeks. I will find that episode and link to it here, because we talked about this through a different lens. I had one question for you, and we were talking specifically about sales action, so there's actually a different lesson to this example, and I will link to that. But really thinking about how can you get out from behind the metaphorical bar. So if you heard me talk about this in the podcast, what I was sharing and what I realized is, in terms of selling more, I was actually using an example of a job I had giving like liquor samples at a wine shop, and again, selling more than other people. But if I think back to waiting tables, when I think to the bar I worked at in Los Angeles, oftentimes when it was just me and a bartender working, I would be waiting tables, the bartender would be behind the bar. We weren't in competition, so to say, but we didn't pool tips. And so when someone came in through the door, they had the choice to either go up to the bar and grab a drink and sit down at a table, or sit down at a table and get service. But if they went up to the bar to buy a drink and sat down at a table, they had a tab with the bar. That wasn't my clientele then. So that was not revenue. There wasn't a tip in that for me that wasn't going to count towards my sales. Hopefully that's tracking and making sense. So one of the things I learned very quickly is, one of the benefits I have as a server is I can get out from the bar. And if I want the people sitting at my tables, kind of taking up my metaphorical store space, right? If I want to be able to have the sales and the tip from that meal to serve them, I have to get my butt up when people walk through the door, get out from behind the bar, and make an effort to greet them, to walk them over to a table, to take their order, and to sell to them. Now, this sounds so overly simple and so, I think, Captain Obvious. And I know from when there would be two servers working and the bartender, I know how frustrated one of my friends would always get and think that the bar was always stealing her sales. And she would just get so frustrated, and she would literally go and sit like at a table and basically like not work for part of the night and get upset. And the bar wasn't doing anything wrong. They weren't stealing her sales. Someone walked in the door and they didn't know where to order from, and the bar was the most obvious place to go. And what it helped me realize is, if we're going to sell in a place where there is an obvious other option for someone, it's not competition at all. That's not what we're talking about. But if it's not obvious for someone to buy from you, we have to go out of our way to get in front of someone and to make it obvious for them, and to kind of walk them through over to our offer and our sales process. And I think in our online space, this is kind of the same metaphor I see play out, right? We might not be at a bar, we might not be in competition with a bartender, and I don't believe in competition at all. I think there's enough to go around. And it is noisy, it is loud, and I think what happens so often is so many of us are frustrated, and we think someone else is getting all the sales and it's not fair. And the response is to kind of like go sit down and pout in the corner and be like, well, it's not fair. They're stealing all my sales, or they're getting all the sales, or like, what's the point? And what I want to offer here is no one's stealing. I mean, hopefully no one has that mindset, but like no one's stealing anyone's sales. And that's a beautiful thing. If the metaphorical bartender is getting sales, that means there are people who want to buy and spend money and who have a need that needs to be served. And if we want to serve some of those people, and it's not obvious when they walk in the online space door that we have what they need, it's our job to get up, walk out from behind the bar, or get up from wherever we're pouting metaphorically, but it's our job to go greet them, welcome them, walk them over to our table, walk them over to our section, and to offer whatever it is we have. And so I say this here because, again, I know that sounds so obvious, but that simple act, that simple mindset shift, and that simple willingness to take that action and to take that, literally, I mean, that is a sales action, was the difference between making great money and not. And I never felt guilty because I always tipped out the bartender. And I just helped them make their life easier. They didn't want to have to serve their whole bar and the whole floor anyway. So in case anyone's brain is going there. But I think just seeing for everyone here, one of the things we can learn from that, one of the things we can take from our online space is, how are we kind of like sitting around hoping people just come up to us and buy from us? Or are we making the effort to figure out, how can I get in front of someone? How can I greet them? How can I walk them over to my section? How can I make an offer to them? And if we're not, how can we start to think through what would that look like? Because that really is the strategy for you and the difference maker for you. And that kind of goes full circle to that mindset we were talking about at the beginning of this live stream, where if you're deciding you're going to make a certain amount of money, if you're deciding you get to have what you want, if you're going to be open and available for that, right? This is the kind of action, this kind of strategy and the kind of action that follows that. If you're deciding this is yours, you're going to go get it, right? This is what I want to invite you to be thinking about then, is how can you connect that mindset to this kind of strategy and action? Super simple. Everyone here is capable of doing that, but it's those pieces there that can create wild amounts of money for you, versus the mindset that's like, oh, well, it's too crowded, someone else is stealing my money, what's the point? Or like, let me just go sit over here and see if anyone comes over to me. Or like, I'm hanging out, like someone should know that they can buy from me. And I'm teasing. I know no one here is actually doing that. And I think we can see that difference. And you can work in the same bar, right? You can have the same menu to serve someone. You can have the same opportunity in terms of clientele coming through the door. And we can see how, depending on your mindset, depending on your strategy, depending on the action you're willing to take, depending on that whole approach there, the results can be vastly different. And that is the same thing for us in the online space. And so I want you to see that we all get to have the benefit of this beautiful online space. We all get, like, this is our online busy bar, right? We all get to have that benefit, and we all get to have the benefit of, like, what a wonderful time that we don't actually have to, now the world is open so we can go outside more, but we are connected to so many people. There's so much opportunity. And yes, a lot of us are selling similar but different things, but the difference maker, I believe there's enough for everyone to go around, and there's a beauty to the crowdedness. I think that means there's more need, demand, safety than ever to buy online. And I think the difference maker for all of us is seeing we can all work in the same bar and get very different results. And these are the pieces that change what those results are. And so hope this live stream was helpful. And I hope everyone here, whether you're thinking through the lens of waiting tables or just really through the lens of that really is the clarity, mindset, strategy, and action. Those really are the pieces that make the difference. And just looking at where are those opportunities for you? What's the lever you can press that's going to help you be the one that's getting those wild results? So I hope that is helpful for you. If you're watching now or on the replay and you have any questions, throw them at me. If you have any reflections, throw them at me. A reminder, if you say hi, leave a comment. We will pick a winner on Thursday for a free copy or a gifted copy of my sales course, Sell Out Without Feeling Like a Sellout, 6-week sales course that goes through the mindset and strategy of the art of selling without the ick, which I love to talk about. And then again, a reminder for those of you who want more support with your mindset, with your strategy, when we talk strategy, the marketing, the sales, doing that in a way that is service-based, that is from integrity, that also allows you to make those wild amounts of money. That is what I love to support my clients with. I think I'm very good at it. My clients, I have found we get really, really great results. I would love to support you, and I'm super excited because we have 2 spots opening up. I have not opened up additional spots literally in over a year, I think. We've had spots open up as clients finish up their, their contracts and containers, as we've talked about, but we're actually expanding our capacity. Thank you, beautiful team. And we have not done that since last year when I actually closed capacity for a while. So I'm really excited for that. If that is you, that is something you're interested in, that is something you're thinking about, please book a discovery call with me. I believe one of those spots actually got booked today. So we have 1, maybe 2 opening up in June. And then I likely will not open up any more spots, additional spots, definitely for the rest of the year, possibly ever, unless clients are, finished and we have kind of a spot open up that way. So it is a great time to connect with me, a great time to chat about how I can support you to make more money in a way that feels good, doing the work you love. All right, I love you all so much. Thank you for being here, and I'll be back next week with another live stream for you. Bye.